Welcome to Talk Too Late. This is Talk Too Late. I am Game Too Late, and this is the show in which we look at games and games industry stories 2 years after they have occurred. So we look at games 2 years after their release. Imagine that. Isn't that an incredible concept or not? I am joined as usual by my guests, amazing guests. They're incredibly expensive, and to get them down to join my show every week is like a fucking job, I'm telling you. So please welcome them very warmly. This is HeadacheMik.
Hi guys.
And Prosil.
Hey guys.
How are you doing, guys? How's it going? HeadacheMik, you took a week off.
Yes, I'm currently, this is the last day that I took off from my Twitch vacation, but tomorrow we're gonna start restreaming again. Possibly some WoW. I don't know.
Cool. Did you take a week off because you were too tired from joining the previous episode? That was our special episode about Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain.
I mean, that episode kind of changed my world now. So now that I'm famous, I had to take some time off.
That's true. The hype and the social pressure. It's
exactly.
been quite incredible. Yeah. And if you are watching this, remember that you can check out our previous episode on Apple Podcast or Spotify. And Prosil, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thank you. Been playing games, exercising as usual. I've reached the milestones of 90 platinums this weekend.
90?
90, yeah, 90. So I'm up to schedule.
Damn. So let's remind to our viewers that you are on a mission to achieve 100 platinums by the end of 2020.
Yes, and before it was 2021, but then with COVID, I think I can do it.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, COVID, if there is one decent positive thing to COVID, is that a lot of people are able to catch up to their backlog, or at least so I hope. But I'm not one of them.
Don't play the victim here.
How are you doing?
Well, yeah, I'm okay. I've been trying to play games, but the recent assessing my playing schedule was finishing Metal Gear Solid Phantom Pain.
I do remember that.
So that has been the highlight of 2020 so far. I am now playing Broken Age, and this segues into one of the articles of 2 years ago. There is this nice article from the 23rd of May 2018 by Tim Schafer. Search the link in the description or poke me and I'll give you the link, or you can find it yourself. Damn it, you use Google. This article, you really want to read it if you are a Tim Schafer fan. It's a pretty long article, and it's him having a look at his own career, but also projecting himself to the future and actually thinking about his own craft and thinking about what he wants to achieve going forward. The article is in fact called "I Haven't Made My Best Game Yet." And we hope so. I mean, Broken Age, I've been playing it a little bit recently and it's really nice. And yeah, so I wanted to open the episode by mentioning this little news from 2 years ago. But you know what else happened 2 years ago? Games.
It's interesting you brought this up anyway, because I've been playing Green Fandango this weekend.
Yeah. How did you find it? I mean, the game, I was looking at it and I was thinking, wow, it's rough. I mean, it's an old game and it aged significantly.
The problem, there are so many fans of that game out there, so I don't want to start any conflict. But I'm one of those. I'm one of those that never played the game when it was released. So I think I missed something. But definitely, it's a game that remains. It remains when it comes, to characterization, voice acting, and other stuff. To me, I prefer Broken Sword. So a lot of fans would kill me here. To me, Broken Sword is written in a better way. When it comes to riddles, there are some riddles that the way they are designed, you're never gonna figure it out, and that's part of Tim Schafer's world in other games that remains sometimes very, very unusual, because sometimes you need to click a button and it simply is not there, or it's on purpose that you cannot see the part of the game. Because the camera changes and anything like that. there are some riddles that are quite impossible. I had to look up guides for some parts because
I think that Broken Age sort of improved that aspect, but it still
yeah.
remain a game where at some point you go like, well, this doesn't make sense. Still, I think that Broken Age is fairly accessible. One other thing about this article is that it was already quite focused about Psychonauts 2, the sequel to his big success Psychonaut. And 2 years on, that game hasn't been released yet, and Double Fine has been acquired by Microsoft in the meantime. With a pretty cool, with a pretty strange announcement also. But let's look at other games that actually came out 2 years ago. And here we have our little schedule. It starts. I'm gonna dive right in. As always, as we've seen in the previous episodes, in 2020 we see a lot of games arriving. Sorry, in 2018 we see a lot of games arriving to Nintendo Switch, and
What's happening?
Yeah, no, I just hear some shouting, but that's okay.
Oh, it's my loud Italian family.
Yeah, that's just that. So
everything,
I was
everything
feeling
under control. Don't worry. Yeah.
I was feeling on for a second, and the Banner Saga arrives to Nintendo Switch. Hyrule Warriors, a Wii U brawler, and the Musou game arrives to Nintendo Switch. Little Nightmares arrive to Nintendo Switch. Mega Man Legacy Collection.
Wow.
Again, a lot of little ports. We've seen these games all previous episodes, and this is carrying on the trend. 2018 was really the year of a lot of games arriving to Nintendo Switch, but among them there was also some PS Vita games like Stardew Valley, which was a major success of 2016 that was kept being ported everywhere, left and right, still in 2018. I've never played Stardew Valley, but apparently it is good.
Sorry again too late. Can you look up Mega Man's collection to see what's in there?
The Mega Man collection. There's Legacy
1 and 2 because
there's Legacy 1 and 2. Weird. Yeah. I don't know. I suppose there's a bunch of originals.
Mega Man Powered Up.
Collections. Mega Man Legacy Collection. This is it. Mega Man Legacy Collection and Legacy Collection 2.
But doesn't say which games.
No, it doesn't really say what they contain. But anyway, these are
That's
the
such a brand they lost.
Who lost it? I mean, Capcom?
Yeah, I think they always kept it. Nowadays you would expect that game to evolve with 3D, and they could have created something like Mario 64 or similar, but with Mega Man, they never did. They always kept it simple with the guy shooting on 2D, and they renamed. They also released a couple of games with similar to Mega Man, but with different names. Simply that doesn't add up. I'm a big fan of the first two on Nintendo NES.
Mm-hmm. I never really played them.
It's a masterpiece.
Yeah. This month was also the month in which Bloodstain came out, and Bloodstain was developed by one of the people that originally was involved at the time with making Castlevania games, and if I'm not wrong, also Mega Man. I think this guy was also involved in Mega Man, but I might be wrong. Yes. So if you look at the story of the development, the creator of the game, Mr. Koji Igarashi, is kind of famous by the way, but I cannot pronounce his name, sorry. He had previous experiences working on Mega Man 9 and the original Castlevania. So anyway, I'm really like losing the plot here. Going back to our schedule and going back at the major games that came out in the second half of May 2018, we've said we looked at some major indie games such as Banner Saga and such as Stardew Valley. I never played Stardew Valley, but I'm really curious because so this game has been so big.
Yeah, it's on my list for sure. It looks like it's amazing.
Yeah.
Is it?
The other one is the Banner Saga, which is a tactic illustrated game. I really found it to be really fascinating because of the illustrations. It brings me back to a time where games were hand-drawn a lot more, and I just liked it. But it seems like a proper game.
Didn't this game have some trouble because of the name Saga?
Oh, I haven't followed it.
Candy Crush Saga wanted to sue it.
Really?
into not having that name. Yeah, it was a big deal. Apparently, they tried to copyright the word saga.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, we don't know yet about that, and we don't know if anything has occurred as an outcome of that situation. But still, the game reviewed pretty well, and it kept being ported, and so it did in 2018 when it arrived on Nintendo Switch. But let's look at some other things that are a bit more higher profile release, and I'm talking about this little game called Resident Evil 7. Now, we all know Resident Evil 7 is a pretty gorgeous looking game, and we know that it's a major console release. So how did it ever arrive on Nintendo Switch, which is a greatly underpowered console compared to other platforms where the game is on? Well, Resident Evil 7 arrived to Switch in the weirdest way possible. So we look back at this article from 2 years ago from Kotaku, and it covers what I'm about to tell you. It basically, what arrived on Nintendo Switch is actually called Resident Evil 7 or Biohazard 7 Resident Evil Cloud version. The way the game has launched, not only is it playable via full streaming, just like Google Stadia, but the other weird part is that you have to pay to play. You don't really purchase the game, you sort of pay a fee, like a subscription to pay. It's a bit strange.
What?
Yeah.
Do you pay Capcom or?
You pay directly to Capcom, yes. It really runs. It has nothing to do with Nintendo servers. It runs on Capcom operated hardware and streamed from the Capcom server over to your Switch. Now, because it's streamed directly from the single point server of Capcom, this solution was not really viable for anywhere else other than the local network, which obviously meant that this solution was engineered for Japan only. People try to play this with their Japanese Nintendo Switch abroad, and it failed miserably. You really need a really strong internet connection. And if you look at the game though, you would say that the game actually looks pretty well. Realistically, I mean,
Yeah, it's streaming.
Yeah, has recently played the game, and you see it's being streamed, and the streaming quality is actually very good. You would say that it's the same quality of a PS4 game. You don't really see any sort of downgrade because it is on Switch. And of course, we are looking at a YouTube video, so now it doesn't really display it to its best. But it's still really, really, enjoyable and good looking beyond the capabilities of the local hardware of the machine. And this was a sort of test at the time to see if this could have been a viable solution. But overall, even in Japan, people deemed that the requirement for the internet connection was a bit too stringent. You really needed a really good and stable connection for this to work. So much so that if you look online, people have to detail the fact that this was recorded in Japan because it's not representative of the game anywhere else in other conditions. But yeah, it's a pretty peculiar situation, and I think that when we talked in the past about the future of Nintendo Switch, some months ago in our previous episodes, Prosil suggested that in the future we could stream the game to the Nintendo Switch to extend the life of the console. Well, this had already happened, and unfortunately now 2 years later we can see that this experiment hasn't been followed on. So it remained a single experiment, and it doesn't really become a commercial solution. What do you guys think? Isn't that weird?
Mick, do you wanna go?
Oh no, you have a Switch. I'm sure you really have a strong opinion on this.
I think the connection 2 years ago wasn't the same that it is now. Now you can pretty much have portable connection like 5G, which are pretty fast. I think that's not an attempt in the right direction. I think it's something that can happen. We still have a lot to see what means hardware. It's interesting to see, what companies like Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo are gonna play if in the future we are gonna have servers from from companies like Capcom that will host their own games and you stream from there, differently from what Stadia was mentioning, that Stadia is a service where they stream their own game, and same as PlayStation now. It would be interesting to see, like, if you need to connect, because we know that Nintendo servers are pretty bad, so we don't know here if you're connecting to Capcom or if you're connecting to Nintendo servers and then Capcom, so we really don't know.
Yeah, it's Capcom basically. Apparently it's full Capcom.
Right?
Nothing to do with Nintendo service and Nintendo online architecture. Completely separated, so because I'm certain that Nintendo wouldn't even care about experimenting in that direction.
It's interesting.
It's bad, right?
I would be curious to know, how much is the cost of this? Because
here it is.
Is it for?
On top of this, you don't get to own a copy of the game. You basically rent one. The game can be rented for 3 months. No, sorry, 180 days. That's 6 months. Costing 2,000 yen, which is about 13 pounds. Guys, this is cheap.
But you need to pay on top of it.
What do you mean you need to pay?
You need to pay to play.
No. You pay the rent of the game. So it's rented.
I mean, it's not a terrible thing.
It's a decent.
It's rented.
I don't even mind not having a copy. Like Resident Evil 7 is a game that you probably finish like a couple of times for those 180 days, and then you forget about it. So it's not terrible. And I don't mind leaving like the door open for a console as good as a Switch, but that is gonna eventually become less powerful and less powerful until they do like a Switch 2. So it's a window that I hope they keep open for the future. But they've shown that they ported Overwatch onto it. They've shown that it is possible to port a very strong, even online video game. Without breaking the console. So who knows if they will.
The thing is that porting a video game to Switch is still an expensive endeavor for a developer.
Sure.
Whereas this one is literally take the game, make it run on a server, and try to do delivery of it via streaming. So probably Capcom thought that it was more convenient this way. Funny thing, they did not use the same approach for Resident Evil 3, right?
No,
I don't think it's not on Switch at all, right?
Resident Evil 3 is not on Switch, and they're not gonna follow
like
the same thing.
One of the best Resident Evil ever made is not on Switch.
And you know what I was thinking? I was thinking that if they did it, they would probably lose money, like lose a lot of money, because people would rent it and finish it in 2 days, and nobody would actually.
Well, they still have to pay the 13.50.
Yeah, I know, but
I would prefer to pay 13.50 than 40, honestly.
Yeah, still. But I guess that too many people will get burned a bit too fast by how short the game is, and probably they would have I don't know. But I'm just
also though you said a very smart thing. Like on Capcom's end, this costs nothing. Nothing. Like it doesn't cost as much as developing the port.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
It costs servers are expensive for sure, but probably not as much as making the game thing. It's a clever cheaty way that I think it's fair that Capcom has used, because Capcom likes to cheat and cut corners as much as possible.
Apparently.
And I speak very personally.
Yeah. Anyway, that wraps up our little corner of hate against Capcom and our little corner of Resident Evil nerdiness. Just to move on to more nerdiness by remembering that Persona 3 dancing, Persona 4 dancing, Persona 5 dancing arrived to PS4 and PlayStation Vita in May 2018. These are basically spin-offs, of course, of the Persona games, and they're basically rhythm dancing games. Apparently they're good because people buy them even though they're released in a bundle next to each other. But hey, that's Atlas for you. And Dark Souls Remastered. Did you guys play the Remastered?
I did.
How is it? Is it a good remaster or is it terrible?
I'm a PC gamer, so I played the remaster probably 10 years ago, because not 10, 5.
Okay.
Because this mod came out on PC, and you could even add it on Steam back then. It would not break your Steam stuff, which was called DS Fix. It was basically the way to run the game with a way better resolution, like a legit modern resolution. 60 FPS, which kind of mind-blowing for the time, instead of being gated to 30. And the textures were amazing. Like the game was actually pretty good and pretty better. And you could actually even disable it with one input of your keyboard. Sometimes if you found any mishaps. Then this game came out, which is basically a legit DS fix finally. And I was really willing to give them money because it's a beautiful game. I do not need it, but it's they need. It's worth to give them $30. It was like $20-$30 or something. Mm-hmm. It's not fully priced.
On Switch, I think it's a bit more.
Oh wait, they came out on Switch as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh right. No, this was the release on PS4 and Xbox.
Okay.
Oh, I think it came out a little bit later.
I suppose a little bit later.
Like a month, maybe. Not much.
Cool. Well, let's move on to our big release of May, possibly the bigger release on the console landscape. And it's a game that comes from a studio that I've been following with a certain anticipation and curiosity because I am a big fan of Heavy Rain. And their new game was Detroit Become Human, which arrived on PS4 in May 2018. During the development of the game, there was some controversy surrounding Quantic Dreams about their working conditions. Some French journalists sort of leaked information about working condition at Quantic Dreams that raised some eyebrows. There were back and forths. David Cage himself had wanted to get back at the press by doing his own statements. There was a bit of, some back and forth, but overall the game ultimately came out without really having to suffer any repercussions from that noise that surrounded the release. And we're looking at a review from Eurogamer from the 24th of May 2018, where it actually looks, I was going through it before the show, and even though it highlights some clumsiness of the overall feel of the game, it just calls it clumsy yet effective. And the article goes as far as saying that this is perhaps one of the best games from Quantic Dreams, which made me quite curious now to give it a shot. I know for a fact that
did you play it?
Somebody here played it. He gave it a shot. What does he think? I have not, but I really should go back to it, especially because of the fact that it's so futuristic, and right now we're all in sort of cyberpunk hype mode, and maybe we want to give this a go.
Prosil, please keep it spoiler free though, because I really, really, really want to play this. It's out on PC too now, so
Where do I start? It's an interesting game. I think it's an evolution of the previous concepts. Definitely goes in a different direction from Beyond, where Beyond you have this. They introduced this chronological order quite messed up so that you could add a bit of spice to the story. Here the story changes, but not so much. You always have the idea that if you do something, the outcome of the game is gonna change, and it does change. But overall, it's an entertaining game. If you never played the previous one, to me the best one remains Heavy Rain.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I also played Fahrenheit, which I appreciate back in the day, but now if you play it now, it's a different story.
Yeah, great.
Heavy Rain, though, despite the plot holes and the inconsistencies that people criticize, is still one of the best to me. And this one is linear. There are a couple of last minute changes, I would say they implemented in the game. I need to keep it spoiler free, but you can see that probably something has gone through. You realize
how many protagonists? Because you remember Heavy Rain pretty much had 4 protagonists. Like literally, they were equally protagonists. Do you play as one specific character, or
they kept it to 3?
That's nice.
So it's basically it's a woman and 2 men.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And and they are. I mean, that's not spoiler. They are all androids. Mm-hmm. You figure it out from the start.
Really?
That's cool.
Yeah. And the problem is that all the thematics that they talked about in the story, they are all being already unveiled from other concepts. Like for instance, Blade Runner is one of those. If you have seen Blade Runner, this stuff you'll see it coming from miles. Same like Deus Ex. You haven't. That might be a different story. If you're totally new to the concept of machines matching humans or machines in the human environment, I think that something adds up. It's definitely an entertaining story. So depends which plots you unveil, because you may unlock a very sad ending or something that you didn't want to. But the first one I did, I was pretty satisfied. So and the first one you do is generally the one that remains for you. Like for instance, for me, Heavy Rain, I did one ending at the beginning, and that's the way the story ends for me, even though I saw all the 22 endings.
There is this article, the article I was looking at earlier raises again one of the statements from David Cage about how to him it was just science fiction about robots and their consciousness, and for David Cage there was no real political or social commentary. So everything, if you found any sort of social historical parallel, it's all because of what you are adding to it as part of your interpretation. But the article actually slams that out right away, and they say no, they are quite clearly intended. Cage deliberately evokes slavery and the civil rights movements in the android's plight.
Yeah, I don't get this. Like, no, Cage wanted to tell me this because this is what the game told me. So Cage wanted to. But shut up.
I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know. But it's definitely a game with social commentary. It's. From the very little I have seen, it's obvious that the game tries to invade the sort of narrative and the sort of themes of cinema. Go straight into that. I know it's a video game, but it's literally trying to tell you a story that a movie would. You play it, and there is gameplay. It's a gamey game, I think. I don't understand people that sort of complained about the fact that you don't play or you don't. It's like an interactive movie. Yeah,
it's a Cage game. If you don't know it at this point,
I don't think there is a problem of gameplay. Just deal with it. And but yeah, I think it's unfair to say, or it would be. I think non-genuine to say that there was no social commentary. I expect the sort of game to have a lot of social commentary and a lot of, moral with it.
I think from the game you can clearly say that the android are the victims in the whole. There is no way you can see it the other way. The android are seen as the victims here, like independently for what you do. No matter what you do, it's always, human. It's really against human.
Okay.
That's the way I've seen it.
Cool.
Because if you do good choices, it's because the human you are being influenced and because android are good. If you do bad things, it's because the human didn't plan very well that android could have reacted that way. So
realistically, the game should have been called Detroit Against Humans.
Probably, yeah. But no, become
Detroit's
human
fuck humans.
The title is perfect because at the end you don't really know if human can be right or wrong. They can pretty much change. But it's very interesting, like a lot of things, like how you cooperate with humans. Like this part, for instance, that's an optional part, the one in the park. This one, the one you have now with the girl, that's amazing. But then doesn't head up. Like it builds some hype, but then it's an optional one, so it doesn't end up in a very interesting part. There are a couple of things that I despise from. Now that I relook at the whole images, I think definitely it's great. I was expecting something more graphic-wise, because if you look at it, it's
it's a good-looking game, but nothing
from what I gathered,
like in previous games.
Exactly.
That's because David Cage, like every time he makes a new game, I think we spoke about it. He has to make a new engine for every new game. So this takes like 1 to 6 years, and at that point, every graphic that he was probably working on, it's now.
An interesting thing to say about this game, speaking of its graphic and its technical side, is that for the first time, this was a Quantic Dream that arrived to PC. And it arrived to PC pretty much right away. Even though it's a Sony exclusive at the beginning, not long after that, it arrived on Windows. Let me check it out. It arrived on May 2018. And then, oh no, sorry, they arrived a year and a half later on Windows. But again, it arrived on Windows, and for the foreseeable future, Quantic Dream has announced that they will be working on PC.
Yeah, now we do have Heavy Rains 2 on PC.
And yeah, the catalog has been backported to PC.
Yeah, only on Epic Store though, which I'm kind of calling bullshit, but I'm okay with. It's fine, as long as we have some PC stuff.
Okay, cool. Overall, the game sold decently, I would expect. Let me see. Reached 5th place in the UK. Sold 50,000 of Dutch weeks. Does it say? Okay, in October 2019, so a year and a half later, it reached over 3 million copies sold, which is, I believe, enough for them to recoup the cost, I would say. I don't know. Anyway, going back to similar news of 2018, I think that we're pretty much done with the release schedule. At the very late May 2018, there was little stuff like Pokemon Quest,
Street Fighter.
There was Street Fighter, yet again, an anniversary collection arriving also to Nintendo Switch among other platforms.
I played that if you want to know.
What can you tell us about the anniversary collection? What is the anniversary collection anyway? It's just another repackaging, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's Capcom being greedy. Sorry.
They've been praising this quite a lot because it includes all the Street Fighter, etc., etc., etc. To me, is a cheap way to include Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Champion Edition, Street Fighter 1, which is the only game you would like to try. Then as soon as you try it, you switch it off. It's something that I wouldn't recommend buy, never ever.
Yeah.
Because if you want to have the Street Fighter, you keep the original. The one that they remade, the Street Fighter Ultra, that then brings up new graphic, makes sense, but it's not in this. Yeah. So if they were adding that game to the collection, it would have been pretty nice. But if you look at this collection, it's just Street Fighter 2. It's not Street Fighter.
Pretty much, yes. It's 1, 2, and 3. There is Alpha, but it's literally a collection of games from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, can I say something publicly for the first time ever?
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know if and what is the difference between Street Fighter 2 Alpha, 2 Turbo, 2 Super. I don't want to know
the title.
I'm just saying
the title.
Okay.
No, it's different.
No, I'm kidding.
I'm sure there's a ton of different stuff, but I don't know.
Like you're an expert in that?
Yeah, I was very good Street Fighter player.
Right.
Like I was playing also on arcades. From Street Fighter 2 World Warrior up to Street Fighter Alpha 3, and I played also the third, but I didn't. The third, I think Second Impact, no, Third Strike I played, but I didn't play the others. I'm an experienced Street Fighter player. Then they introduced the combo, which I didn't really like because they don't belong to Street Fighter to me, and I gave up. I bought the 5th. I still have it packed. I never unopened it. I never played it. I still have it from release date with all its flaws, just because I wanted to collect it. And I sadly knew that they released an arcade version and a Champion Editions version. I said, thanks God I never opened it, because if you have to buy DLCs. Nowadays fighting games, for instance, Mortal Kombat is released the Aftermath DLC now, which is quite big. I can see how the games they evolve, but nowadays it's only about frames. It's not about having fun. It's about frames in fighting games.
Well, yeah, because since we abandoned cathodic ray tubes TV, we have been lagging frames because the flat panels are slow, so we lose a few frames because of those. And so winning those frames back meant that the controls need to be perfect, that the control input doesn't have to exist at all, that there has to be no lags. So I guess that professional fighters in video games are really fixated over the frame situation, but I know nothing about it.
There is a huge science behind character creation, frames. You wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Like they released an update on Tekken 7 where basically they made a couple of frame change in Kazuya's move, and basically all the ranking were messed up because somebody found out this, and Kazuya now is overpowered.
Damn. Imagine.
Yeah, and I don't think this is nice anymore.
That's crazy.
Before you could know the combo and the sinks and combo breaker, all this stuff. I'm a big 2D one-to-one fighting game player, but I don't like it anymore. I don't know.
Anyway,
like I know theories in all of them. I know them, but it's different now.
Guess this pretty much wraps up our calendar, our coverage of the calendar of 2 years ago. In terms of news from 2 years ago, there wasn't much. There was this little article from gamesindustry.biz that I've picked up saying that PlayStation 4 was phasing out its own console life and saying, okay, we're preparing for the next generation. There was a Wall Street Journal report, sort of outlining the roadmap of the console in the future, and they were also trying to gauge what their expectations were with PlayStation VR and their other efforts. There is a separate article about PlayStation VR where Sony admits that the market growth of VR has been below expectations. Again, pretty much going back to the same slides that emerged in that situation. But yeah, I don't know what they were expecting, but as far as I understand, they sold quite a lot of VR sets, but it hasn't been really a big landscape shift changer. So I don't know. That's really the big news from late May 2018, and there weren't really much else to cover in this episode. So we look forward to meeting again for the next episode 2 weeks from now, where we have major games such as Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn, or
It's a remaster, right?
I've got no idea. I suppose it's a remaster of Shaq Fu, the famous or infamous baseball game.
Vampire.
And Fallout Shelter arriving to Nintendo Switch and stuff like that. Really not much else. But I'm gonna take this little moment to...
There is Vampire though.
There is Vampire, which apparently is gonna be one of the major things for next episode.
I never played that, but it's quite famous game. There is... Let me have a look.
Banner Saga 2, already a sequel after this episode. So...
There is Super Bomberman.
Super Bomberman,
I think that's a game on Switch that they never released. It's curious. That's a super game.
There's incredible stuff, such as Lego The Incredibles. Anyway, going back to our wrap-up session of the episode, I just want to remind everybody that we can be found on Apple Podcast, which is the podcast application on your iPhone, your iPad, your Mac, your Apple Watch, your Apple Toaster, and the likes. And you can also find us on Spotify. And I'm gonna wrap up inviting you all to follow me on twitch.tv, on my Facebook page, Game Too Late, and Twitter and everything. And I'm gonna leave it to you guys to talk about yourself and your coordinates, and we're gonna wrap up this episode. And thanks all our viewership for following us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you guys wanna talk about your
channels?
Sure.
You can find me at twitch.tv/HeadacheMik. I'm gonna stream there 3 times a week.
So what are you streaming with now that you restart your streaming?
That's a very important question.
Are you finally going back to catering?
No, I don't know. But I'm doing kind of a, I don't want to call it a challenge, but I'm doing kind of a thing now that I need to farm a lot of reputation on World of Warcraft, on specifically doing a PvP zone. So there's going to be a lot of killing and a lot of conquering. So I'm going to probably do that for next week, and then after that, who knows?
Cool.
We'll probably play some horror games.
Prosil, what's next for you?
You find me on Prosil, at twitch.tv, Prosil, you play too much. I don't know now. I think I'll finish Neo 2, but I wanted to start Resident Evil 2 remake. I think I'll do this weekend. The problem is that my connection is not great at the moment. And before starting Resident Evil 2, because it's gonna be a blind running hard, and it's gonna be a platinum as well. So number 91 is gonna be that. I want to make sure I can stream the whole experience with good connection.
Cool,
so
good luck.
But if I start the game, I'll finish it. There is no way that I'll do like a 12-15 hour stream.
Damn. Cool. Yeah. Then I invite everybody to check out twitch.tv Prosil, you play too much over the weekend, especially where you are often doing your long sessions of gaming. It's pretty intense. Cool. We're gonna wrap it up here, guys, and I think that's it. Do you guys have anything to add?
Stay safe and wear a mask.
Yeah, stay safe and don't wear a mask if you're in the UK. Just stay alert.
Wash your hands, maybe?
No, they stopped saying that now. Sorry. Don't wash your hands anymore. Sorry. Just stay alert, okay?
Only go to work if you have to, but don't use public transport. We keep it there, but don't use it.
Yeah, just sorry guys, maybe there's a little bit of saltiness coming through, but let's just ignore that. And we wish you guys to stay safe indeed, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Take care.
Definitely. Bye-bye.
Bye.